Yeah, you pressed the button, have you? Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of the Cabinet of Gloucester City Council, Wednesday, the 11th of March, 2026. This meeting is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. The recording of the meeting will remain online for 4 years, and if you are present in the chamber, you are consenting to be appearing in the recording and broadcast, which may also be used for training purposes. The first item on the agenda is apologies. We haven't got any except for the head of culture. Declarations of interest. No. Minutes of the meeting on the 11th of February. Are we happy with those? So I will sign them. Item 4 is public questions. We haven't received any, so we'll move on. Item 5, petitions and deputations. We haven't received any, so we'll move on. Item 6, leader and cabinet members question time. First one up, I think, is Alistair Chambers. We'll go to the thing. I'll start the stopwatch. Make sure. First question, Alistair.
Can you give verbal and written personal assurances here and now that the budget does not have any further mistakes?
Well, it doesn't. I do regret that there was one line that was overstated and another line was understated, and they both netted out. But after that council meeting, I checked through everything else, and it all seems fine. So I think moving forward, I have seen this sort of thing happen before in previous years. I think moving forward, we'll just need to come up with an extra process to make sure that the papers in the cabinet and the papers in the council are both match exactly line by line. You are going to get some changes, particularly this time because of the change in the government settlement. But unfortunately, in this particular incident, it was just a bit of human error, nothing more than that. But as I said, a little bit of checking in future, and I'm sure we can eradicate that.
Thank you. Just before I move on to the other question, was that your personal assurance? But as a question.
No, he's answered the question. Can you go on to the next one, please?
Okay, well, hopefully you can answer this question then. Can you give any personal assurance, now written and verbal, that the current 151 officer will remain in post for at least another year from now? Thank you.
Let's just put it this way. You've had the answer about why there's been 4. The first one retired early, I think. The second one retired with ill health. There's a temporary uplift. And we've appointed the 4th one, first appointment, by the Lib Dem administration. And the LGAs have complimented her as being like a breath of fresh air in the finance team. And she's doing a brilliant job to sort out the mess that we were left by the former Conservative administration. So I'm really pleased that we've got Alison Turner as our head of finance, and I've no doubt she'll do a brilliant job, and there's no intention for us to see her go. We wanted her to stay.
That's really good to hear, because I was worried you might make her go, and I wanted her to stay.
Come on, get on to the next question.
Do you have any, do you agree deferring the internal audit with key financial systems risk areas was the right thing to do?
This goes back to 23, 24. No, well, not really, no. I think part of the issue is, and my attention was brought today, actually, to, there was an LGA corporate peer challenge back in 2022, and it raised the issue, one of the comments they made was the peer review is the council needs to give serious consideration to continuing to strengthen its financial resilience. I think our financial resilience should have been improved, it should have been built, and should have been made stronger so that we could have. The issue was because the systems hadn't been rebuilt, it was difficult for internal audit to go in and do any kind of a serious audit, because in many ways there wasn't much there to audit. So what they decided to do, and what the management at the time decided to do, this before we were in administration, was that they decided to accept the offer from internal audit to help them rebuild the systems. But in hindsight, I think that we should have probably been more wary of the dangers and the risks. And I think maybe those audits should have been resumed much more quickly than they were.
Okay, next question. Alistair, that's number 4, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. 4 comes after 3. Yeah. Can you give personal verbal assurances here and now? Not an actual answer to this, but if that's with the greatest respect, Declan, because you haven't really answered the other ones. So can you give personal assurance here and now that no misstatements or fraud has taken place?
I can only tell you what the auditors have told us, that we've had SIPVA have done a thorough check on everything, and they have said they haven't found any evidence. The external auditors haven't found any evidence either. I should point out that, you know, the phrase that the auditors have used in their report that went before Audit and Governments, there is a risk that financial statements as a whole are not free from material misstatements, whether caused by fraud or error. That's a fairly standard statement. I Googled that just to see for myself, and popped up all over the place. And part of the issue is because these disclaimed audits, it just means that they haven't been able to check every single transaction. So therefore, you know, they sort of, they cannot guarantee completely, simply because it's not the sort of as detailed an audit as you might have had in the past, because there's a situation within the country itself that a lot of local authorities have got behind in the audits, and there was a huge backlog. So the government decreed that there had to be what you call disclaimed audits. So therefore, that line is in there, just saying it doesn't mean that they find any evidence of any wrongdoing, but it just means that they really, it just means that nothing they've done has found anything that leads them to believe that. Now, I should point out that where we are at the minute, I explained this to Overview and Scrutiny last week, is that in our EFS offer from the government, they have raised issues of their concerns, because this offer of EFS does come with some conditions. And what the Minister has said is, I have significant concerns over historic financial governance issues, concerns raised by your external auditors, and the issue about not producing accounts on time. So she has concluded that given these concerns, the department intends to proceed quickly with an external assurance review. So they have told us that they want to do their own detailed review, and they're going to treat us as the priorities. That work will be starting soon now. So that will give us some more reassurance. And I think really that's as much as we can do. I know there's been calls in the past for forensic in audits, etc., but they are incredibly expensive, very labour intensive. Unless you know some specific area, you can't really do something like that, because you're just looking for a needle in a haystack. So this is what I think the review that the government, which they incidentally will be paying for. So that reassures me in the sense that that review, I think, will satisfy a lot of the concerns people have been expressing, and we will see what comes out of that. And I would imagine they will be covering the period from the cyber attack onwards, so maybe about 24, 25, sometime around about then. But that's outside my control, so I'm not entirely sure. But that review is coming, and we will be able to see the results of that, and if anything comes out of that.
Okay, question 5, Alistair.
That's all. Thank you. Cheers.
Councillor Patel isn't here, and neither is Councillor Lewis here. So I'll go straight on to Councillor Stephanie Chambers, and the first one is number 12.
Thank you, Chair. I can't see the time. Have we not got the clock up today? Well, there's usually up there, aren't they? Right. Question number 12. Yeah, this one confused me a little bit. So I went back to my question that I emailed in, and it states for the Cabinet Member of Planning, but I've got an answer from you, Jeremy. I also noted, because that drew my attention to looking back at the question, that my question's been changed since it's been printed, which really is concerning on democracy, isn't it? I'm asking a question and it's altered in the document. So the answer given by you, Jeremy, not the Cabinet Member, doesn't answer my question in the slightest. Now, my concern, which is clearly stated, it is the Cabinet being given incorrect advice, because I thoroughly checked the Constitution, and yes, there are decisions that the Cabinet can make, but every one of those decisions is subject to call in and within the budget and policy framework. So I saw that as an inaccuracy, wanted to challenge the advice you're being given, because it was clearly stated by Councillor Sawyer that was advice she'd been given. I wasn't saying she was wrong in saying it. She clearly stated that was advice. So to try to get to the root cause of what advice you're being given as a Cabinet is quite important, to do with the decisions being made in this council, because you don't want to go outside your authority. I'm sure you don't. So could you answer the question now? What advice and who gave that advice, please?
I think your question was about the comments made by one of my Cabinet members, and I'm not going to comment on the speeches or interjections which were made in full council by any member of this authority. I don't think it's my job to do that. If there is a problem of process that you're concerned, then the most effective way of doing that is to put it in writing rather than a public question, because I can't answer you any more than I've already done. Can you move on to the next question?
No, I can't, because my question was to the Cabinet Member for Planning. That was written in black and white. I wasn't asking you to answer that. I was answering Councillor Sawyer.
I'm part of this. So I didn't see the original one being directed to me, so I apologise if I haven't answered. So basically, you've seen the Constitution, yeah? So section 3, it says the responsibility of the council is to amend the budget and approve the budget. Underneath, it says the responsibility of the Cabinet is we can agree fees and charges. So in my eyes, the two can't work together. So my proposal is that general purposes look at this, because it's true that the Cabinet have the authority to raise fees. So your amendment was on the fees for the bins, wasn't it? But we got a Cabinet paper in January approving those, and it already started in January. So we've got this strange situation where we can have a Cabinet paper come in January and accept fees, and then come February, the council can overrule that. So I think general purposes needs to look at the Constitution, and it's either one or the other, isn't it? It can't be both. We can't be setting fees and then council unset the fees. It looks silly to the public. So I recommend the general purposes should look at this, because the advice we're given is correct. It is our choice to raise fees, but then you can't have a situation where they can be undone if it's our responsibility to see what it means. So. Okay,
thank you. Like I said, I think something like this is better done not behind closed door, but off a formal Cabinet meeting and done in writing where there's a problem about the process. You've got number 13.
Thank you. Can I just say, I think Councillor Sawyer asked that perfectly, and you should have more faith in your Cabinet to answer questions, because that was a very good explanation.
Your question was directed to me, not to Councillor.
No, it wasn't. Read the email.
It was directed on the sheet that I received.
Well, not on the email, it wasn't. Okay, right. So question number 13, the car boot sale. Now, the answer given doesn't correspond to other things that I've been given. So would you be able to provide me with the audit report, including the exempt part of that report? Because it states that the car boot sale options are all options, including the in-house, was analysed at the time of marketing, whereas what I've got down doesn't state that. So I'd really like to see that audit report. And it also doesn't align with what you were told me at the time when we had a conversation about it, where you mentioned there could be another option. So would you provide me with those audit papers so I can check if this is just an error, or if you could... So an exempt report, any member can ask for an exempt report if they feel they've got a good reason. And to me, I've got official council papers that contradict each other. So I would like that report to see if that could clear things up for me.
I think the process then put in a request for her to see an exempt report, and I'll consider it.
Okay, number 14.
Yes, I have one here. So, yeah, I thought the answer, what was that one? Yes. So when are you going to start accepting that you've been in administration for nearly 2 years now? I look back at question 5, which I think Alistair's got the papers there for, which details some of the figures, and there was a lot of the figures which you stated are all our fault that fell within your administration time. Now, you will tell me that those are miscalculations and going back over old accounts, yet you're refusing a request for a forensic accountant to come in. Now, the reason why I've been pushing so hard for the forensic accountants is because my understanding is that nobody independent has gone through these accounts line by line to look through to see why there's such significant differences. Now, I've took this advice from a very, very senior senior officer in this authority that states forensic accountants should be brought in. Now, I don't think I'm wrong in requesting that as a member, and you've given us some really high prices for how much that would cost. But however, I would really, really like to see breakdowns of those costs, how many quotes were received, and why we think it would cost, and if we could do something to simplify it or work together to see if that can be done. Because you're asking me for an apology, yet you won't show me the figures. So it was already established that the Lighthouse report did not cover enough of what we needed to know.
Can you get to your question now? Because you're making
Will you
a
sit
speech.
down, discuss the costs for forensic accountants and work out a way that we could come to an agreement, considering this come from a very senior member of this authority, to see if we can do that, please?
We've already been through this argument. We've done forensic investigation of the accounts going back to 2021. Your administration failed to file 3 years' sets of accounts and left us with a bequeath which is extremely difficult to deal with. At no stage have you apologised on behalf of your group for the mess that you left this administration to fix. This question is related to the LGA report, which is on the agenda this evening, which proposes some firm changes to the finance team to resolve some of the issues of the stresses and strains that are in that team. We have had Ernst & Young go through external auditors. We've had the LGA come in. We've had CIPFA come in. We presented a report to the government. They have told us they're going to request some investigating insurance. The thing we need more than forensic accountants, which is a proposal by somebody who no longer works for this authority, is to look into the leadership of the council during your time in the cabinet and why we got to the mess we did do. We'll see what the government requests. We'll get that information fairly soon, what they want. They are going to fund it. Your proposal would cost us a fortune and it's not budgeted for. And keep saying, oh, we want this, we want this. It's a bit like a child. I want that toy, I want that toy, I want that toy. Well, I'm sorry, we can't afford it. Question 15, please.
Thank you. So the reason why this authority needs to sell some assets is because it's in the financial detriment it is. Now, this authority has to sell assets, and some of them, possibly, we don't know, could be anything that this council owns, could be community interest or public open space. Everything's on the table. Now, these are things that really may cause severe upset to members of the community. Now, Declan, I've always found you to be very honest and open, and you've stated there you will do the public consultation we have to by law. And you went through a long explanation to the answers of one of Councillor Alistair Chambers' questions, talking about the huge backlog in the whole country and a long explanation of the auditing, etc. So thank you for that, because then you've answered your leader's question of why he keeps saying we left it in a mess. Well, Declan explained to you, so I'm sure you have heard about the issues of the...
Can you start asking a question? You're going into a rambling speech yet again. And I'm not sure what your question was. Could you just repeat the simple question that you want to ask to the Cabinet Member for Resources?
In the context to it, so I would like not to be interrupted by you. One of the cultural issues that I find we're in now is, and I have this on good assurance, opposition.
Sorry. The question is about the about this disposal of council assets. Can you stick to the original question and ask a supplementary based on the disposal of the assets, or I have to ask you to leave the table?
I'll leave, I'll forget that. But what I will say is democracy is dying under this administration, under your cultural lead. And maybe you need to take some advice off your cabinet members because they seem to understand democracy.
No. Well, we haven't lost a member of our group because of cultural reasons. Let's move on to the next agenda item because none of the other questioners are here at the moment.
You don't want me to respond to your comment? No?
No. Item number 7 is the LGA report into the finance team. Members will remember that back in September cabinet meeting, we asked for a review of the finance team to go back and talk the problems of that followed on from the cyber attack in 2021. We're particularly interested in a review of the capacity, the capability and the resilience of the team that we had at the moment. We also received a similar request for us to do that at the October meeting, at the October council meeting from the external auditors, and council agreed that that should be done. And the process had already been commissioned by that time, but the LGA were commissioned by the managing director. They came in at the end of December, I think, November, December, and they took evidence from 16 members of staff, most of those working in the finance team, but also some of the officers that actually use the services of the finance team. And the report has now been published as an appendix. What we're looking at is that the finance team says that finance team has been under significant strain since the cyber attack. There's been instability, due to the changes in leadership, interim staff and systems disruption. An interesting quote, the LGA said, loss of muscle memory. Now, in other words, that means that people were working in the team and things that they learned were forgotten. When maybe another interim officer came in or somebody left. And the other problem is that there was no permanent structure. In other words, that structure was changing because we were taking in interim staff or other problems. And the team was constantly firefighting for a long time. That's going way back into 2021. When there was a lack of performance appraisals for 5 years for most of the members of staff in the finance team. There was issues about them all working from home since the pandemic, and the fact that they weren't working such as well as a team because they weren't meeting each other regularly. And then probably also, it was clear that many of them were working long hours, so people weren't getting around and talking about the problems within the finance team. And budget managers had not been made accountable for the spending they had. But then I think budget managers didn't really know what the spending they were having, how it balanced, and that's one of the problems we found. The report recommendations from our report is that we do have a new permanent structure. We improve the processes. We have better performance management and good collaboration based on business partnering between the teams that are receiving the service and the finance team that's delivering the service. And that also there ought to be much better budget monitoring, and we already know that we're doing this on a monthly basis now with the budget managers and the finance officers. They've been teamed up, so that's working better. And we've seen the progress we've made in the last few months in settling and sorting out the finances of this council. And of course, we've received the acknowledgements from the government who've seen our recovery plan, endorsed it in effect, and supplied the exceptional financial support to this council, which is quite modest compared to many of the other authorities. There was 35 authorities which were granted EFS funding over the new year, and our requirement is less than what many other authorities have been granted. So we're on target to move forward. I'm just going to read out the summary recommended next steps from the LGA. They recommend that we appoint fairly soon a deputy Section 151 officer. We restructure the service. That's in the appendix, how we're going to restructure the service. We recruit to the team permanently rather than having temporary staff. We've got, I think, 2 on temporary staff and 2 vacancies at the moment that we need to fill. The processes and systems are fully documented. There is a one-team finance approach, everybody working together as one team. I think that's one of the reasons why they were probably critical about everybody working from home. It's almost impossible to be in a team if you never meet anybody, or very seldom meet people you need to be meeting reasonably regularly. That there are new job descriptions and role profiles for the team. That training and development is improved and the business partnering approach is endorsed. That appraisals and performance management for all the team members is introduced. We have one person dedicated to the capital programme to oversee the council's £200 million asset portfolio. I think that's one of the other weaknesses, that there wasn't a finance office particularly specialist in dealing with commercial business operations. And they nominate a day of the week when all team members are expected to be in the office. I said in regular one-to-one conversations. So I think this report was interesting, if not a bit painful for some to read, but I think it was a very good report done by the Local Government Association. One example why we should continue to keep our membership with the Local Government Association. I've already said that it also says in the report that the new Section 151 officers are breath of fresh air. So I think we made a good job in the appointment of our new Section 151 officer. And this, I say, finally, this administration is fixing the problems that were handed over to this administration. And we're making progress. I think we should be proud of what we're doing. We're fixing the problems that were left to us, and we're making this city and this council a better run local authority, which will benefit the people of Gloucester. I'm going to go to Caroline first.
Sorry, Declan. I was surprised. Yes, it was a very interesting report and it was quite a painful read. What disappointed me really was it really laid out the human impact of what's gone on. We've seen lots of reports that talk about the circumstances, the cyber incident, the aftermath of the cyber incident, and from a process point of view, all the things that happened and the way things had to be conducted while we were recovering from it from a process point of view. But what was quite upsetting for me to read was that there were paid employees of this council working under extreme duress, a lot of strain, and they weren't receiving the support that they really should be entitled to as employees. People see sometimes one-to-ones, objectives, performance appraisals as something that, you know, it's a tick box exercise, and it seems as though that's how it was being treated in this circumstance. It's always one of those things that gets left until the last minute, but normally you expect it to happen, even if it is left till the last minute. So I was shocked to read that people, at the time when they needed it the most, were not getting that one-to-one support, and that their welfare wasn't really being monitored properly, because that's the sort of meeting where these things get discussed. So yes, I would be interested to see what's going to be put in place to make sure that no employee of the council is ever in that position again, where they can go for 5 years or even 1 year without one-to-ones, clear objectives, understanding exactly what their role in the organisation is, understanding exactly what's expected of them, and having someone that they can go to when they're feeling stressed or when they're unsure about what they should be doing or how to perform their role. I don't ever want to read reports of that happening again in this council.
Thank you, Caroline. Declan.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. Pretty much agree with what you've both been saying. It is an uncomfortable read, but it's exactly the sort of honest assessment that we need and this organisation needs. Our finance team has been under sustained pressure for a long time, and this report at least sets out clearly what must change. The important point tonight is we're addressing the problem. We're not ignoring it. But, you know, we must remember that strengthening the financial function is essential to good governance and to our wider financial recovery. This is an important first step. And from my point of view, whenever I took over this portfolio, I really wanted to sort out this council's finances. And I think we are doing that. But we need to strengthen our finance team. We need to strengthen our financial resilience. This report's a good first step, but there's some important actions there that are in it that we must make sure that happen. So I'm very happy to support the recommendations, and I really appreciate the work from the staff that were interviewed, our Section 151 officers as well, and the LGA themselves. I think all of them together have done a thorough and impressive piece of work. So this gets us onto a good footing, and I'm sure that bit by bit we'll get this process back up and running again, get itself into regain a strong financial function, which is absolutely essential.
I'm just checking. Yeah, thanks for that. It was clearly something else. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo a lot of what the cabinet members have said. Had a senior management team level, we monitor things like appraisal completion rates at service area level. We were not aware until this report that they weren't happening, because at the aggregate level we were monitoring, we were getting good response rates for completion of appraisals. So staff were telling us in the annual staff survey that they were having appraisals. So this was a shock to read. I would just agree with what the Cabinet Member for Culture and Leisure said, which is that we have to make sure that going forward, this is not repeated anywhere else in the council. So we are going to be looking at implementing these recommendations. Even the ones that haven't been implemented already will certainly be implemented with immediate short order. And we have to get this right and make sure that, as Caroline said, no other team is in this position again.
Anybody else? I think we'll receive the report and agree to the recommendations. And we'll leave the officers to get on with implementing absolutely everything. I think the only final thing is that we are restructuring the team, and we are adding a critical member to the staff team and also filling in the vacancies. But if there is a need for further resources into the finance team, bring it forward quick and let us know, because we do need to make sure that we resolve the problems of the finance team, and we make sure that we have a really first-class team that's working well, that's happy, that's not overloaded, and is doing a really good job. That's the most important thing we can do to get things moving forward. But everybody's happy for that, yeah, and we'll move on to the next agenda item. That's Declan. Cool. Yeah, go on.
Yep, okay, that's fine. Just very briefly, you'll have all have read the report, and it went before overview and scrutiny last week. It provides members with Q3 financial monitoring update for 25-26, based on actual income and expenditure over the first 9 months and the current forecast for the remainder of the year. There are a number of pressures within the budget, particularly within environmental services. The costs relating to waste and recycling are higher than planned, as well as pressures in areas such as asset management, parking and some corporate costs. These pressures are partly offset by favourable positions in other areas, particularly housing services, where additional grant income has reduced the net cost of the council within corporate funding. Officers have also strengthened the council's financial monitoring arrangements. I think this is quite important. In one sense, I have a lot more confidence in the numbers that I'm receiving now than would have been the case in the past, even though some of those numbers are a bit uncomfortable, but at least we get an earlier warning of actions that we need to take. The financial monitoring arrangements have been strengthened, including monthly meetings between finance officers and budget holders to improve oversight and forecasting. Overall, the report highlights the need for continued careful management of resources as the council works through its financial recovery plan and the exceptional financial support arrangements. So I would urge everyone to support this, or I don't know what we're doing, are we just noting it? Yep. And read it very carefully, because it's sort of given us a quick screenshot of where we are in this particular financial year.
Any further comments? No? Okay. We'll agree to recommendations. Yep.
Yep.
Next agenda item is capital strategy.
Okay, I'm on a bit of a run here, so bear with me. So capital strategy, this report represents the council's capital strategy for 26-27 and asks Cabinet to recommend it to full council for approval. The capital strategy sets out the framework for how the council plans, funds and delivers its capital programming over the next 5 years, including how we manage capital investment, borrowing and funding. It also explains the governance arrangements and key risks associated with delivering the programme. This strategy ensures that our capital investment plans are aligned with the Council's wider priorities and financial planning, including the Treasury Management Strategy, the Asset Management Strategy, Property Investment Strategy and Medium-Term Financial Plan. The report itself does not approve new spending, rather it provides a strategic framework for managing and monitoring the Council's capital programme. The Council is required to produce and approve the strategy under the SIPFA Prudential Code and wider local government finance legislation.
Okay, you agree?
Yeah, we're asked to recommend that the capital strategy be approved.
Agree? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. This is another one for you, Declan, number 10.
Yeah, this is the Treasury Management Strategy, which I've just mentioned in the other one. This report presents the Council's Treasury Management Strategy for 26-27 and asks Cabinet to recommend it to full Council for approval. The strategy sets out how the Council manages its borrowing, debt and cash investments and includes the potential indicators and authorised borrowing limits required under local government finance legislation. In short, it is, again, like the capital strategy, it's the framework that ensures we manage the Council's finances responsibly while funding the capital programme. Given the Council's current financial position, the strategy also reflects the work underway to stabilise our finances, including the application to government for exceptional financial support and the wider recovery plan to reduce borrowing over time through asset disposals and improve financial sustainability. The strategy proposes continuing our under-borrowing approach, meaning we use internal resources where possible rather than taking out additional external debt, because the cost of borrowing currently exceeds the return we would earn by investing these funds. It also sets out how short-term borrowing and investments will be managed, the limits in overall borrowing, and the policy for minimum revenue provision, which ensures the Council makes a prudent annual charge to reduce debt over time. Overall, the report ensures the Council meets its statutory obligations under the 2003 Local Government Act and the SIPFA Treasury Management Code, while providing a prudent framework for managing borrowing and financial risk. So I think once again, Cabinet is asked to approve this Treasury Management Strategy. It will then go before full Council.
Yep, agreed. Next item is number 11. That is the pay policy statement.
Right, the pay policy statement. This report asks Cabinet to recommend approval of the Council's pay policy statement for 26-27. It's a document we are legally required to publish each year under the 2011 Localism Act. The statement sets out the Council's approach to pay and remuneration for the coming year, including how senior officer pay is determined and the relationship between senior salaries and the wider workforce. Its purpose is to ensure transparency and accountability in how the Council manages pay. There are no financial implications or policy changes arising from this report. The main requirement is simply that the Council publishes an up-to-date statement each year, which must be approved by full Council following Cabinet's recommendation. This is about ensuring we continue to meet our legal obligations and maintain transparency about our pay arrangements. And once again, Cabinet is asked to recommend that the pay policy statement for 26-27 is approved.
Yep. Okay, that's good, thanks. Car parking review. Oh, I wonder who that's going to introduce that one.
Here we go. Actually, this one, it came before overview and scrutiny, and it was actually quite a good debate, I thought, a good discussion, and they came up with some interesting proposals, which are recommendations, which I'll go over at the end of this. But overall, the review itself, the reason why we need to look at this is because, in short, costs are rising faster than income in our car parks. There are current operational constraints and outdated parking orders. There's an increasing antisocial behaviour problem, and we need to take into account regeneration and EV transition demands as we move forward into the future. So what we're proposing is to consolidate and modernise all our parking orders, enable improvements such as installing an EV infrastructure, introduce evening charging to enable us to make the car parks more hospitable and safer, potentially provide residential permits which align with the County Council system, and moving to one full management contract. What we want to achieve from all of this is to stabilise maintenance and security on a more proactive rather than reactive basis, secure contract certainty, help drive the nighttime economy by keeping King's Walk and Eastgate car parks open at night, improving the state of our car parks, making them safer and cleaner and thus more appealing to users. As I said, we had quite a good discussion at overview and scrutiny, and They came forward with 4 recommendations, which I'm happy with, but I'll just throw them out just in case anyone's not familiar with them. Recommendation number 1 from overview and scrutiny was, in considering the new permit system, Cabinet explores the practicalities of offering discounted parking permits to smaller vehicles. Recommendation number 2 was Cabinet explores options for the provision of secure cycling storage facilities in the city. Recommendation number 3 was Cabinet considers restricting the proposed evening car park charges to the multi-storey car parks in the city, basically Eastgate and King's Walk. And Cabinet number 4 is Cabinet explores the options to facilitate a collection point for private hire and hackney carriage taxi drivers near the Gloucester Transport Hub. Now, personally, I think I would support adding those recommendations to the report, because I think that all of them have some merits to them. Other than that, I'm happy with the report, and I hope people here will support it as well, because I think, to me, we need to sort of meet the challenge. It's not the costs of running these car parks is increasing every year, and we have an issue with certain, the Eastgate and King's Walk, they're closed at night time, and I would like to sort of get into a system whereby, if you have a small evening charge, that could provide us with finance to keep those car parks open and keep them in good condition. We do already have somewhere similar in Southgate Moorings, where there are evening charges. That's one of our most popular car parks. I think this is something that there will be a little bit of extra cost, but at the same time, I think people would appreciate having those car parks open and for them to be able to feel safe and secure in them at night time. So I would urge everyone to support this report plus the recommendations.
Carla?
Yeah, I support this report. I agree, Declan. I think at night time, one of the things that prevents people from coming out or feeling comfortable coming out is they often don't feel safe walking around the city at night. And I know that if I was a family and I had some young children and we were going to the Guildhall to see the Ultimate Bubble Show or something, and I had an option to pay, say, £2 to park close to the venue in a nice, well-lit, clean car park, or I could park for free half a mile down the road in a dimly lit, rubbish-strewn open car park, I know which I prefer. And I think it's important that residents have the choice to pay for something that meets their requirements and makes them feel safe and makes their family feel safe. So I do welcome the proposal of those charges. Regarding the recommendations, I thought they were some good ones too. The only reservation I had about the one charging less for smaller cars is I wouldn't want to see families disadvantaged, people with 3 kids or something, probably it's quite expensive a day out or an evening out for them as it is. Also people who are car sharing. So, people with families, people who are car sharing are likely to turn up in a bigger car. So I wouldn't want to discourage that, but as long as it's approached in the right way and the right sort of consultations done, then there's no reason we can't look into that. But otherwise, happy to support the report.
Just as regards the nighttime parking, what I think of whenever I go to Cheltenham, I go to Regent's Arcade. Is it Arcade? Is it a Regent? Yeah. I never feel unsafe in there. I'm always perfectly happy to. In fact, that's my car park choice. So, why can't we have something like that here? And of course, when you park in the evening there, you pay for it. So I think this is a good solution, and I certainly think that's the road we should go down.
Anybody else? Just to say that I'm all in favour of us modernising the parking orders and everything that we've got in Gloucester, so that we can operate our car parks in a way that we will be operating, or we're operating the new car park at the Forum. And having evening charging is important, I think, because it does mean we can keep it open and we can keep it staffed, and there'll be somebody on duty keeping an eye on everything in the car park. And I think that's That's important. I like the idea of us introducing EV charging points. More and more people are moving over to electric cars, and they'll want to charge up their vehicle. And if they've got a car park where we can charge, well, that'll be to their benefit, and hopefully it'll be to the benefit of the city council because it'll provide an additional income in there. But we really do need to upgrade the car parks. I think one of the problems we have is that they've not been as well managed as they should have been over the years, and we've been effectively trying to fix problems in repairs and maintenance of the car parks when it's been noticed rather than properly managing it. And I think the other option is that we can then look for a management contract where we can ensure that various aspects of maintenance of the car parks is included in that agreement. And also we are starting to introduce, and we want to introduce more city centre living. Well, there's quite a lot of city centre, like at Whitefriars, for example, where the residents don't have their own parking space. And there will be more like that. And to be able to get a permit to park in a public car park at a reasonable cost, I think is a good option as well. But it also means, of course, there's more people using the car park, and because it's being used, that makes it a lot better. But also, if we want to drive the city centre economy and improve it like we are doing, but we've still got a long way to go, then having decent public car parks, well operated, and where the charge is at a reasonable cost, but it covers the cost of operating these car parks, I think is important. I know there's some members of the council think we could give the car parks away and people park for free, but who's going to pay for the maintenance of the buildings or the construction of the buildings in the first place? These costs, car parks cost money to run, and we do need to balance the income against the expenditure. And so I'm happy to endorse this report. Everybody else? Yeah? Nobody? Okay. Now this one is item 13. This is the Renters' Riots Act 2025. And it received royal assent on Monday, the 27th of October 2025. They also amended existing legislation. This is a piece of legislation I think is good, surprisingly good for a Labour government. Not everything they do is that good, but this is one of the things, a piece of legislation I agree with. Just tell you what the Act does. It's been phased in over different phases, but we're prepping up our own team to handle it and deal with it. First of all, it will abolish Section 21 evictions. In the previous case, people would get a tenancy for 6 months and get 2 months' notice, and you've got to go. You can't argue about it. You just got to go. So it will be much more assured and over a longer period. It will also ensure that possession grounds are fair for both parties. So landlords can't just push somebody out, or if somebody's complaining, which I know is a problem, tenants not wanting to complain about the state of the built property because they're worried about being told to leave. Things like that is just not going to happen in the future, I don't think. Provide stronger protection against backdoor eviction, that's what I'm talking about. Introduce a new private rented sector landlord ombudsman. Create a private rented sector database. That's, I think, is useful as well. And we're doing something similar with houses of multiple occupation. We're consulting about that already. Give tenants strengthened rights to request a pet in their property. Sometimes it can be difficult. I remember when I moved house when I was renting, and I was told, well, I couldn't have that place because I had a dog, and I said, well, by the way, he's just passed over. He's just died. Can I now look at that property? And they said, well, yeah, maybe. And that's the sort of thing I think is pretty
Yes, I think the Renters' Rights Act represents one of the most significant shifts in housing legislation in quite some time. And I think that comes with quite a lot of opportunities as well for our residents. We know that many residents do live in sort of poor conditions and do have challenging landlords. We know that not all landlords are fantastic. I'm quite pleased that it's delivering new enforcement duties for us as well, as that will help us to support the good landlords, challenge the poor landlords and the poor practices, and ultimately improve residential housing. The banning of no-fault evictions and ending the assured short tenancies, along with a number of the other reforms that you've mentioned, can only be a good thing for residents. I think it aligns quite strongly with our vision as an administration, be that sort of driving up the housing standards or expanding the supply of housing through our homeless prevention and temporary accommodation work, and then equally delivering a fairer private rented sector for people. So I very much welcome the opportunities this brings.
Anyone else? Happy to accept the report and recommendations? Yeah. Rebecca, you're next. Unauthorised camping policy.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really pleased to be bringing this unauthorised camping policy report to this Cabinet this evening. A lot of work has gone into it. My thanks goes to the officers. It has gone through a very strenuous consultation process. And as you can see from the appendices, the responses, which are anonymised, you can see some of those responses which have actually been incorporated into the report. And it's very much about finding a balance between what is acceptable for communities and businesses and also the best interests of the person that is sleeping rough. Many rough sleepers who also have drug and alcohol addictions, it wouldn't be helpful for them to be remaining in a place for too long. This just enables their behaviour to get worse. And if they're not engaging, then again, they run the risk of pretty much fatalities. And the last thing we want are rough sleepers being victims on our streets. Therefore, this is where this unauthorised camping policy comes in, which I'm really pleased about. It does, however, not apply to private land. That is under different legislation, which they would have to seek notices for in order to enforce. However, I am hopeful that this policy will never need to be used. It is a last resort, and it is there for those outreach providers to recognise that if there's antisocial behaviour, if they're not engaging, then there will be enforcement action instigated. But as you see from the report under Appendix 2, there is a process, there is a flow chart, and it means that there is that word tolerance. And I think tolerance needs to be had by everybody. None of us would like to find ourselves in a position where we're rough sleeping. It's not a lifestyle choice. It's one that has been put on these people because of some factor in their life. And therefore, in the best interests of people, they do need the proper engagement, the mental health support, and also the drug support and alcohol support as well. And I do feel that this unauthorised camping policy has that balance between them, businesses, and residents across this city. I brought this report to the Overview Scrutiny Committee on Monday evening. There was a suggestion about timelines. This isn't about timelines. You cannot put a timeline on a rough sleeper. Their day is very much going through existence from the moment they wake up in the morning to the moment that they go to sleep at night. They will follow a pattern, which is usually, but not always, associated with their drug addiction. And therefore, you cannot say to a rough sleeper, you have 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and if you've not moved from at that point, then we're going to enforce action. So I made it very clear on Monday evening that I didn't want timelines put on this unauthorised camping policy. It is a matter of engagement and the levels of engagement, which will go through then the process. So, yeah, I'm really pleased with this report, and I'm bringing it here to Cabinet tonight. Thank you.
Has anybody got any comments? I mean, there is a problem in some of our public parks where residents do report unauthorised camping, but it's not. Often it's when they're reporting problems of antisocial behaviour, drug and alcohol addictions, other leaving the site in a complete and utter mess, and that sort of thing. But this policy will improve things. It's the first time this council actually got a policy in dealing with it. I think that's one of the major problems in the past, that there wasn't a clear policy that went through a normal procedure and an approved procedure, so it would get stuck in a place and then never get resolved. It says here that a report is received of an encampment occupied by rough sleepers. Outreach services visit to seek engage. If the individuals don't engage, enforcement action is considered. Welfare checks completed, no vulnerables identified, maybe enforcement. Any concerns regarding antisocial behaviour and negative impacts on residents or businesses, that goes to possible enforcement. Is there a risk of harm arising either to the individuals or to the public? That might go to enforcement. Do any individuals have access to accommodation? Yes, they might do. It might well be that some people are camping in the public parks will actually have their own accommodation themselves. Is the area being kept clean and tidy in a sanitary condition? That might get passed on. Is there a breach? The site tolerated subject to ongoing review. In other words, they will be engaged through all those processes. There was only the other day a tent, which I've reported, at Wellington Parade on London Road. It's supposed to be a garden and plants, it's not a place to camp. I'm not sure whether it's moved on. I know it's been reported, but we need to go through proper procedures because there have been problems in the city, and of course the welfare of individuals is important as well. And I think this policy does that, and it engages properly with everybody, and they go through the process. But what we're not doing, which might have done in the past, is engage, not get an action, and not proceed through the flow chart. We've now got a flow chart, and of course we will review how this new policy is implemented and how it succeeds over a period of time. Anybody got anything else? Caroline?
Caroline, before you come back, I just wanted to respond to Jeremy, if that's okay. I think it needs to be clearly made, though, that any enforcement doesn't mean the numbers of rough sleepers are going to decrease. And I think this was something that my officer raised at the overview scrutiny on Monday, which is actually a really fair point. When you start enforcing rough sleepers, what are they going to do? They're still homeless, and they could move on to somewhere else. But this isn't the point of the policy. This is about having a process of proper engagement in terms of unauthorised camping. So I think it's really important to emphasise that this isn't just a way of saying to someone, you are not allowed to be in that tent anymore because this is a park and that's it. This is about going through the proper process to engage, because actually, hopefully, this policy won't be needed, because if that engagement happens and continues to happen, then it may be that we can get the adequate housing for that individual, whether temporary or permanent. I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Caroline?
Thank you. Thanks, Rebecca, for bringing this report. I think it's really important. It shows how we're considering the needs of the rough sleepers who find themselves in these circumstances, and we're also considering the needs of residents who are perhaps being impacted by their presence in some way or another. So it is very much about engagement and making sure that we're able to achieve the best outcome for both the rough sleepers and for residents. And I agree with your position on not enforcing a timeline on these things, because each individual will possibly be presenting with different issues. They'll have different circumstances. Some of those might be relatively quick or easy to resolve. Some might take longer, and moving somebody along to a prescribed timeline when perhaps just an extra week or two of engagement might have ended up with a better outcome for them. You don't want to be forced into that. So I think it's been very sensitively done. And that will be our approach, is to do this sensitively in a way that gets the best outcome for everybody affected. So I welcome this report.
Anyone else? No, will agree to it? Right then, item number 15. Luke, I think.
Yes, thank you. Local lettings plans have the potential to deliver real place-based benefits by helping new developments thrive and responding to local housing needs more intelligently. But to do that, we do need a consistent and clear approach across the city. This policy sets out the expectations of how we expect local lettings plans to be designed, when they should be used, and how they will align with our wider housing objectives. This paper is seeking approval to consult with our registered housing providers. They are essential in delivering high quality housing across the city, and their feedback will ensure that the policy works in a way that fosters strong partnerships. Local letting plans will provide a clear and consistent framework for how affordable homes on new developments are allocated. Alongside our planning and Section 106 policies, they will strengthen delivery. The previous administration used unnecessary red tape to sort of dither and delay on developments, and this will be one step in fixing that. For some reason, Overview and Scrutiny decided not to request a report for discussion on Monday's housing dedicated session. However, the consultation is a constructive step forward, which I hope you all support.
Anyone got any further comments? No? Well, thanks, Luke. Well, we'll agree to this one. Yep, okay. Home Seeker Plus review. That's you again, I think, isn't it, Luke? Yeah.
Yes. Home Seeker Plus is the very much the beating heart of how we allocate social housing across Gloucester, and it's essential that the policy is fair, transparent and fit for purpose. The draft revised policy reflects the ever-changing housing landscape and provides further clarity to ensure that the policy is understandable and interpreted correctly. The changes proposed are both minor and major. The major changes are outlined in the appendix. The consultation will take place over a 6-week period and will be open to all those affected by the policy. This report also went to Overview and Scrutiny, and there were no recommendations added. Today's request is to begin the public consultation, which will be led by the lead authority, which is the Forest of Dean. Given the significance of this policy, as it affects almost 20,000 residents across all of the districts involved, it's absolutely right that residents and partners have the chance to get their views.
Anybody want to comment? No? Thanks, Luke. That was agreed. Item 17. Sarah.
A new voice. Yeah, this report is asking Cabinet to agree that the local validation checklist be put out for public consultation. We have to review this checklist every 2 years, and this year it was decided that changes are necessary, so a 6-week public consultation is required. The key changes are listed in the report. Following this, the checklist will be revised where appropriate, and comments will be reported back to Cabinet. Just to explain what a local validation checklist is, this list details the information that planning officers need to assess an application. Often there are key parts missing and officers have to spend time chasing applicants. This new checklist will make it clearer for applicants which information the council requires, which ensure that when an application is submitted, it can effectively be stamped as proceedable swiftly and will speed up the time taken to assess applications. This will benefit residents as it will make the process easier and faster. This will also ensure officers are maximising their time spent on assessing applications rather than chasing information. It's a very thorough checklist. It has been written by experienced officers and are using their years of experience to help smooth out this process. We aim for it not to be too onerous, and the amount of information required is proportionate to the size of the application. For example, for residents who want to extend their homes, there is a separate tick list to make it easier to know which documents apply to them, as we know it can be a bit overwhelming. So please support this report today so we can start the consultation process.
Sounds like a sensible thing to do. Do the consultation and improve our processes in the management of the way we deal with planning applications. Again, an example of this administration modernising the way this council runs. Are we happy with this one? Yeah? Okay. I thought it was. It's the last one. It's you again, Sarah.
Finally. Yes, this report asks Cabinet to note the latest decision made by the Community Infrastructure Levy Committee. This levy is a charge to developers to fund essential local infrastructure, such as transport improvements, to support new houses being built. Gloucester, Cheltenham and Tewkesbury pool our charges together to form a bigger pot of money so we can spend it on bigger projects that benefit the area as a whole as we work closely together when deciding future housing allocations. We split this pot of money between large projects and smaller local projects. At the last meeting, we agreed to give 4 million to support the delivery of the M5 Junction 10 scheme. This is a key upgrade project that is needed to enable us to unlock more sites for housing. This is in addition to the 4.5 million we allocated to this project in September. In total, we have committed to contribute £20 million to this project. We also tweaked the application form to make it easier, and we reviewed how applicants are assessed. And there is a new bidding round that is about to start in spring for the smaller local projects to apply for funding. And at the last round, we allocated money to Blackbridge Sports and Community Hub, if you remember. So it's just to note those decisions today.
Are we okay with this one? Yep. That's it. Thank you. That's the end of the meeting. Longest